What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today we're doing another anniversary, but I don't know if we can talk about it. I mean, if if I if I do this, I'm breaking like two rules. But then again, how else are we going to talk about Fight Club? So, this is the 25th anniversary of Fight Club. 1999 was a great year for movies. And this is David Fincher's classic that is adapted from Chuck Palahniuk's novel. I really enjoyed. There's a certain period in your life where Chuck Palahniuk just kind of speaks to you, and then I think probably people grow out of him at a certain point. But I did read a couple Chuck Palahniuk novels back in the day, like Survivor and Lullaby. Some of the stuff that hasn't quite made it into a movie yet, but Fight Club was sort of my introduction. I was like, oh my God, and this was written by a book? Who wrote this book? And then so I saw the movie before. I didn't read the book, but it led me to other books written by him because I was like, man, this guy. And then I was interested in other things that were adapted from his books, like Choke. So, yeah, it's he's an interesting voice in literature, and I enjoy his stuff. Not for everybody, but it's interesting. So, um, definitely a classic. Rotten Tomatoes recently did like a tournament style no holds barred face off of all of the top movies of 1999, and Fight Club made it pretty deep into the competition with fans voting for it. So I was like, will Fight Club win? I don't know. There's some really tough competition. I mean, it was either like The Matrix or Toy Story 2. I think those were the final two that people were trying to decide between. But yeah, a lot of great movies in 1999. Fight Club didn't quite get the acclaim right away. This is sort of something, I don't want to quite compare it to Shawshank Redemption because I think Shawshank found it even later. I think Fight Club just needed like a little bit more time because I think people basically found Fight Club just maybe like a few months later, like maybe like guess when it hit VHS. Like some people had found it in theaters and they're telling their friends, and then it just came at a time when things were just moving too quickly, and then Fight Club was gone, and then it just didn't really explode on awards season. It was like in the awards circuit, but it just never became like an awards frontrunner. Of course, nowadays, this movie has so many fans that I think it would be impossible to not recognize it somewhere. This is one of those things where it's like, if you think about, like, if we expand it to 10, where would it go? Where would it go today? And I think there are enough fans for Fight Club that it's so hard to say that because with the way the internet works and culture and everything, and a lot of these movies ride heavily based off of people just nonstop talking about them. We have plenty of films that are really great and absolutely deserve Oscar nominations, but they never get them because nobody ever talks about them, except like a couple critics who are like, this movie's really good. And you see it and you're like, oh, this movie is really good. Why isn't this? And nobody saw it. 5 people saw it. They all loved it. All thought it was a great movie and nobody else saw it. So yeah, a movie like Fight Club that has a highly devoted fan base, even 25 years later, I think might have had the kind of people like beating the ground for it where it would have slid in maybe that 10th slot, you know? I don't think it's impossible. So, uh, what is Fight Club? Fight Club tells the story from the perspective of Edward Norton, who plays Jack, who he's got a lot of problems in his life, and he is he's he can't sleep. He finds out that if he goes to various support groups for all these different causes, that finally he can cry, and it gives him sleep, and he's able to sleep. And there he meets Marla in one of the groups, who's also somebody who has none of the things that she's going to any of the support groups for. And it's just kind of floating through life, and he becomes sort of like oddly connected to her in a way where he both dislikes her and is obviously enamored with her at the same time. Um, and but also doesn't like the fact that he can reflect himself in her, and so it makes it hard for him to be able to get through the meetings, because now he can't cry and he can't fall asleep. So, and he hates his job. He has a crazy job, but not that important to the plot of the film. And eventually this leads us to a plane ride where he finds himself sitting next to Tyler Durden, played by Brad Pitt, who is selling soap, handmade soap. And the two of them strike up a conversation. You know, Jack finds himself in a place where he needs a place to stay. He ends up calling up Tyler and ends up crashing with Tyler. And they kind of go on this wild ride. Eventually, you get that line, "I want you to hit me as hard as you can," which probably I think everybody has seen in like a clip somewhere. It's sort of like the beginning of Fight Club, and it just starts off as the two of them, and Tyler sort of has these rules that he lives by in life, and Jack needs guidance. He needs he needs to live dangerously. So he takes a lot of cues from Tyler, and eventually they end up making a fight club and other people are there, and things don't always go quite as planned. The other people in the supporting cast, I would say notably Jared Leto and Meatloaf are in this. And they, their Fight Club continues to grow. And the first rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club. Second rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club. So, I don't know. It is an iconic movie. And then there's Project Mayhem, which grows out from Fight Club, and Jack realizes that Tyler's kind of, doing his own thing, and he's frustrated about that, and Tyler's having a relationship with Marla, and Jack has conflicted feelings, and all this kind of stuff that play throughout the whole movie, leading us to an ending. This is where I'm gonna dive more into spoiler territory for anybody who hasn't seen Fight Club yet. I am a blind film critic, and this one does have audio description. It's done by Deluxe, and I have to talk about something very specific here because I didn't like the audio description track and what it did. I didn't introduce myself for my blind audience. Hi, blind audience. We're tagging you in now. We're tapping you in. I've got a black baseball cap on backwards, and I'm wearing a Batman shirt for Fight Club. So, wish I owned a Fight Club shirt. I had a chance to get one time, but it was one of those weird ones where all of the writing was on the back, and like, I was just like, I don't want people always like trying to read the back of my shirt while I'm like sitting in chairs and stuff. I was like, this is a shitty shirt. So I didn't get it. But anyway, it wouldn't have helped me for this video. I'd be like, I'm wearing a Fight Club shirt. You can't tell it because the rules of Fight Club are on the back of the shirt, But so for this, the reason why I don't like it is there are times in which Brad Pitt appears before he lands on an airplane with Jack, with Edward Norton, where you see him, and it is pointed out. And every time he's pointed out, they always say that Tyler appears subliminally, which suggests that he's not actually there, which is the twist. So I kind of really fucking hate this audio description. And I hate that this was ever passed through. And I hate that somebody was like, yeah, we should do this. Because the big twist in the movie is that Jack finds out that he is Tyler Durden, and Tyler Durden doesn't actually exist. He is one person. It is basically he's developed like a split personality disorder, or DID, or whatever you want to say. And Tyler is not real. Tyler's just himself. So when you start saying that at the very beginning and you start pointing out these little times that aren't even really, they don't even really matter. There are times when you just kind of like casually see Tyler there. Um, you wouldn't even necessarily need to point them out. I'm trying to think about like from a visual standpoint because I've seen this movie before, and I'm like, does it matter that you've seen him before the airplane? I don't really think it does that much. I think they're planting a seed like he's in Jack's life, and you recognize him because he's Brad Pitt. But I think if he wasn't Brad Pitt, I don't think you would notice. You know, if this was just played by some dude, you wouldn't notice. So it's not like he has interactions with Tyler ahead of time. He just kind of sees Tyler. Tyler's just there, like in and out through his life. It's almost like an Easter egg. Um, but when you use the word subliminal, you're suggesting to somebody that you know, it's not there. You know, that thing's not really there. Maybe it's not really, you know, like he's, I think they even use like he fades in subliminally or fades out, something like that. It just appears subliminally, like he appears subliminally, I think was one of the ways that they did it. And I was like, so he just, you know, apparated there. Like, I don't know. I feel like the whole thing was just kind of suggesting that he just appears. It makes you think that he's not really there. And then Jack is, you know, crazy from the front of the film. So, which is problematic because you have to be able to buy the narrative for the rest of the film. And once Tyler's on screen, like actively talking as Brad Pitt, they sell him as a character. There are plenty of scenes where it comes across like, you know, like they're both there because it's Jack is an unreliable narrator in so much that he's the one that's presenting the story. So everything's from his perspective as he's sort of telling it. And he's not picking up on the fact that he is Tyler. So he's obviously not picking up on the little quirks. And he tells a story from a very convincing perspective that Tyler is a fully realized person, not him. And it's sold really well. And then it isn't until Marla calls him Tyler that everything sort of comes together for him, and he realizes that Tyler Durden is not real, and he is Tyler Durden. So, that is when you show your hand in the audio description way ahead of time unnecessarily. It's such an unnecessary. I just said that word so weird. It's the description is so unneeded, and it's like somebody really wanted to fuck this movie over, and they were like, well, we'll just throw this in anyway. I really hate it, and yeah, I really hate this audio description track. So I hope it gets re-recorded, and I never hear this again. Nobody ever hears this again because this is gross. And I'm sad that Deluxe is attached to it too. God, why did you guys ever make this? How did this ever pass through Deluxe? This is unacceptable. This would be like in The Sixth Sense. It would be like trying to find a way to let the audience know that Bruce Willis is dead the whole time, and being like, oh, by the way, yeah, they never make eye contact, you know, pointing out little things along the way to be like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, get it, huh? Are you there yet? You know, like, no, man, just fucking do the audio description like somebody hasn't seen the movie before. So, it's just like, I don't know, I was very turned off by it, and I'm not a fan. So, hopefully we redo the audio description to where we're not revealing the bullshit ahead of time, or at least planting the seed in somebody's head ahead of time, because it doesn't need to be there. The twist is comes later, and it's very cleverly done and set up, and when you start kind of ruining it for people, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, that's Fight Club. I also realized, as a person who's getting older, I think I'm aging out of Fight Club a little bit. Like, I'm not as obsessed with it. I don't enjoy it as much. Like, coming out of Fight Club, I think it was like maybe 3 or 4 years after Fight Club, I actually dressed up as Tyler Durden for Halloween. Like, I realized I had enough clothes that I just needed to get like one or two things, and I was like, bam, I look like fat Tyler Durden. Always been fat. So, um, and I kind of pulled it off. Like once I said it, people were like, oh yeah. And that he wears a certain jacket in the film, and I had my hairstyle like Tyler's, for Halloween and stuff like that. So it basically worked out. And so yeah, there was a time where I was like, yeah, Fight Club, it's really cool. It's one of the best movies ever made. Now I'm like, Fight Club, it's a really good movie. Not sure it's David Fincher's best, but it's a really good movie. So I don't know what I would do with this film in terms of awards. I still think it plays really well, but it feels very almost kitschy, like of the moment. Feels very feels the way it's like finally time has caught up with me on this one. I feel sort of the same way about Pulp Fiction, and why that's not my favorite Tarantino film. For a while, I didn't feel that with Fight Club, and I was like, "Oh yeah, David Fincher, this is fucking great." Like I didn't see that. Like there's just something about it where it's like, "Oh yeah, it's cool, it's stylistic, but is it really their best work as a director? Is this really the most challenging work as a director?" And I think Fincher has had more challenging films, that when you really look at it, like narratively, structurally, end up sort of being more impressive than this. I think this is a cool film, but it's a cool film for many reasons, and it's a cool film because Brad Pitt just it exudes coolness. It's the kind of film where I think if I had to say where would its nomination package go, I would say maybe uh, it should be adapted screenplay. Like absolutely, it should have an adapted screenplay nomination. And I wouldn't be mad if it had Brad Pitt nomination for creating Tyler Durden and for being such like like a strong representation for this character that has. When you create something like this that is turned so iconic, it becomes weird that you weren't recognized for such an iconic character. I think Edward Norton has stronger performances. I even think Brad Pitt and Helena Bonham Carter both have stronger performances. So it's not that. It's just that there's something about Tyler Durden that has stood the test of time in terms of great characters on cinema. And what Brad Pitt has done with Tyler, I think, just worked and resonated with a lot of people in very weird ways, in ways that probably caused a lot of introspection and reflection for people later on in life. They're like, why did I like this when I was that age? Was I secretly like a sociopath for a while there? Like, was I, was I a danger to myself? I don't know. I just like, it makes you really think like, why was I really connected to Fight Club? It's a weird movie to be connected to, like on a very intense level. Um, but I still think it's a good movie. I have sent this back from the desert island. It's gone back on the Netflix return boat, and I don't consider this a desert island film anymore. Like I saw it again, and I was like, I don't know, it doesn't have the same shine. I've seen it a bunch of times, but now I'm like, I'm less like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's what, like 2 hours and 10 minutes, something like that. And yeah, I found myself less in the mix this time, and I just didn't. I was like, yeah, I haven't seen Fight Club in a while. This is cool, but I wasn't like, oh my god, thank you. I'm putting on my like I usually felt like I didn't feel the same vibes for it like I used to, where it was like, oh yeah, I love Fight Club. Let's do it. Let's rock it. I put it on and I was like, oh yeah. And I don't think it's a blind thing either. I just think for me it started to feel a little tedious. And granted, I'm not going to change my grade because I've seen this film like 10 times. So it's like, what am I going to be like? Well, on the 10th viewing, it finally hits you. So it's obviously not a classic. I mean, how many people really watch films 10 times? Like every single film they've ever seen. So no, I think I have to default to the fact that the first time I saw it, and even the second and the third, I was just kind of blown away. And visually, cool as hell. Looks cool as hell. I remember this. And plot wise, even from a blind perspective, I think this is a great film to be able to follow. I just don't like the audio description track for this. So I would say don't watch it until it's been re-recorded. I wouldn't watch it. I would watch it. This needs to be redone. I think there's an argument to be made that Fight Club is the kind of film that has stood the test of time, based on the fact that when you look at the tournament from movies from 1999, it's still ranked really high. It didn't win, but I mean, considering you've got the movies I already mentioned, plus you've got like The Sixth Sense, The Green Mile, you've got Blair Witch Project, you've got Austin Powers, Star Wars, Phantom Menace came out, American Pie. I mean, there's just a Boys Don't Cry, American Beauty. I don't know. I feel like I could just keep listing movies from 1999. There are a lot of movies in 1999. Yeah, and the fact that Fight Club is still prominent has a lot to do because it didn't do well at the box office. So that's the important thing. A lot of those films, other films did. This one did not. So the fact that this one has really just kind of stood out all these years has a lot to do with the story, the acting, the characters, and David Fincher's direction. So I'm going to give Fight Club an A. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And remember the first rule of Fight Club. And I'll see you guys on the other side.